So welcome back everyone. Today we will continue with our data provider integration with the Excel. I hope you all have practiced data provider. You also practice how to read from Excel. Today, let me open the Excel sheet and let's try to see what's there. So if you notice, I have username password. You have admin123 admin, which is a valid username password. And again, there is some dummy values as well. So there are uh, three rows totally, one, two, three. But this particular row is really not of our interest, right? Though that's just a header, and we shouldn't be using that in our code, right? When we are running our test. Let's assume I have a scenario where I want to run my test. Let's remove all these things. I have done some practice. Okay, so let me remove all this. Yeah. So now, if you notice, we want to log into the, load this URL, and then we want to enter the username and password. But these username and password should come from here, right? Again, I don't want to enter username and password itself, right? So I have to only start from here and end it here. Suppose if I have additional rows, it needs to always start from here, but when they are adding more rows, it has to extend, right? So this is a very simple use case that we could do, right? Initially, I have only username and password. Let's also see how we can add more values and how we can accommodate into our, the code. Good. So now we have this very simple Excel. Let's minimize this. And yesterday we have written some code to do the Excel reading. So let me copy, okay, and then let me steal it from there and put it here, right? So everything else remains the same. Just one thing, okay, this is all fine. I need to initialize this here, right? So now what I'm going to do is I need to create an object array, and then I need to store everything inside that. So let me open a paint and I'll create an object array. Okay, so maybe something like this, and whatever is there in the Excel, that is admin123 admin1235 1234, it should be basically uh, here. Okay, it should be basically somewhere here, somewhere like this. Okay, you have to just read it from the Excel and put it in the object array, so that data provider will take care of the remaining things. Okay, so let's go here, and for now let me hard code, because there is only one two, right? One two rows, this is two rows and two columns, right? I'm not considering this as a row, because that's not we are going to use in our code, right? So only we are considering it's a 2 by 2 matrix, correct? That's the reason I have given 2 by 2 sizes, 2 by 2. For now I have hard coded. We can change this once we find the last row number and last column number, right? So instead of just printing it, what I'm going to do, I'll have an object array, that is a is the object array. Maybe you can rename this as data, so that okay, let's let it be a. Okay, so now first I want to assign a of 0 comma 0, right? So a of 0 comma 0, okay, that is I j equal to, I want to fetch this value, but first time the I value will be 0, j value will be 0. So it basically fetches me the username, but I want to start from I equal to 1, right? Because we don't need the username and password. So I will start from I equal to 1. We don't need we want to skip this first header row, right? So we are starting from here. So I'll start from I equal to 1, right? Now, even though I start from I equal to 1, the a of I comma j will be it. So since I is starting from, it will be like this. Since I is starting from 1, so a of 1 comma 0. But all I have to do is I have to assign to a of 0 comma 0. This is 0 comma 0, right? This is only 1 comma 0. Sorry, 0 comma 1. 0th row and then first column, right? This is basically 1 comma 0, and this is 1 comma 1. Okay, so now even though it is coming like this, okay, I have to convert this 1 to 0. How will I do that? So I can just tell -1. Okay, so it will try to fetch this whole thing and it will put it here. Okay, since we are starting from 1, it will use 1 here, but it has to store it in the 0th comma 0 index. Okay, so that's how it is. Now everything looks fine, and then we are returning the data provider itself. Let's try to check whether this is working. Let's try to run it. So again, notice the number of columns here is 2, right? But as I already mentioned, the number of columns equal to number of parameters to your test method. Notice we have 3 parameters. So let me remove this. Otherwise, it will throw data provider mismatch exception. Okay. So let me remove this. And how many times this test will run? This test will run 2 times because the number of rows indicates the number of times the test will run. Okay. Let's save this, close, and run it. Again, maybe I'll remove the parallel equal to true, so that maybe I'll put it as false, so that it will run one by one. You can also see whether this is working fine. So all we are doing is reading the data from the Excel sheet and putting it into the data provider. That's it. Now it has started the code. It entered admin 123 admin. I'm not printing, clicking on login and all that. That is done. Now the second data is being picked. It is also getting run. So it will enter 12345, which is actually in the Excel sheet. It fetched the value from the Excel sheet and it used it. If you notice very closely, the value here is admin 12345. The second time it uses the value in the Excel sheet. Now let's go ahead and modify this, right? Let's add one more, right? Whatever. Okay. Now I have added this. So now I cannot go here and make the changes to 3,2, right? Instead, what I could do, I could just tell last row number will be the the row, and the number of comes last column number or last cell number, whatever, right? Now this is not hard coded. If you add more rows or if you add more columns, it will automatically take care of handling this whole thing with the 2 for loops, right? So let's try to change this to true so that it will run in parallel. Now there should be 3 tests running in parallel. Okay, let's see what's happening. So if you notice, admin 123, admin 12345. So now 3 tests are running in parallel. Okay, so all the tests are getting passed 1 to 3. Second time it picked 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? So everything is basically working fine. But there is still one problem. That is, if I try to add more values, let's say first name, okay, or let's say I'll give some values here, and then you are trying to add last name. Okay, now I have added 2 values. Okay, there is no change that is needed because it can automatically find the last cell number. But the problem is I need to go and change the number of parameters, because the number of parameters is equal to the number of columns, right? So string first name, string l name, I need to go and make these changes in the test method, right? But in a real time world, there won't be just 4 test data. In a real test case, there can be 40 test data, right? If you are using personal details and all that, there may be a lot of test data that you need to pass. At that time, if there are 50 test data, your test method becomes clumsy, right? Not maintainable. That's the problem. So how can we avoid this? It's what we're gonna see in the later point of time. But for now, just understand this data provider integration with Excel is very, very easy. We are just storing all the values that we fetched from the Excel into the 2-dimensional object array. It will handle the rest of the things for you. Okay, so make sure the number of rows is equal to the number of times you are running the test, and number of columns is equal to the number of parameters to your test method, right? That's the only thing. And even if you run this now, it will work. Okay, even though we are not doing anything with the first name and last name, it has to be there in the method signature. Okay, now everything is getting passed. Good. Still, there is only one problem, which is if the number of parameters getting increased to 10 or 15, it becomes very hard for you to maintain all these things here. We will see how we can avoid this at a later point of time. Okay, there is only one problem. We will come to that later. Any doubts in this so far?
Yes, Amutan. Amutan, can you come to the for loop again?
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday you told like low index will start from the 0. Okay. So line number 36, you kept I equal to 1. That I understood, like from 0, it will come, headers will be completely excluded.
Yeah.
Now and yesterday you told like column will start from the 1, but here we are giving G is equal to 0.
No. I think while counting the last cell number, they are counting it as 2. Let's
Okay.
say, okay, not the index. Index will always start from 0. Okay.
0. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Amutan.
Maybe it you can print the last row number, last cell number, and then if there is something mismatch, just to change the equal signs or less than equal to, just to manage with this. That's the only thing you have to do. Just a trial and error.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, you don't have to really memorize this. Just a trial and error. If as long as everything is working fine, then you can understand, whatever the code you have written is correct. Okay. Good. Okay, so now we are done with this. Now we have one more thing. Okay, let's go to the the code that we have written, where we have integrated extend reports, right, with yeah. So this is the code that we have written yesterday. I'll close all other tabs, and now let's keep only this, right? If you notice, we have one test case, right? And then we have a couple of test cases here, and we used before suite and after suite and before method. Okay. There is also something called as listeners. Okay. Listeners. Okay. In TestNG or wherever you go, there is something called as listeners. Imagine that you will be coming from India, some part of India. You all hear that the ladies will whisper, right? So they will do eavesdropping, what others are speaking, what others are doing, all that. The same way, what the TestNG test is doing will be eavesdropped. Okay, eavesdrop means someone will overhear what you are doing. Okay, so this is called as listeners. This listeners will observe what you are actually doing. Okay, a test is getting started, a test is getting ended, a test is getting passed, a test is getting failed. Okay, this guy will know all these things. The listener will know all these things. Now, whatever we have written the code here, it's okay, it will work, everything is fine. But the thing is, the before suite and after suite, you are trying to integrate with your reports, but the reports are not definitely your test cases, right? It's always a good practice to keep only the test methods here, only the test methods here, or the stuffs that are related to test. Okay, but here we are putting all the report related stuff here. So if there is a chance that we can move this code out to some other place, okay, then it will be really good. Okay, in those cases, listeners will be handy. But to understand what is listener, I also need to cover one more topic, that is interface from Java 8. Okay, interface. So we already learned about interface, right? So interface, what I can tell, it's a demo interface. Let's say this is a demo interface. So this is an interface. We have, guys, can anyone tell what is an interface?
Default methods,
abstract methods, which has only abstract methods without any body.
Exactly. So as I already mentioned, these interfaces will have only abstract methods, but that is still Java 1.7. Okay, before or till Java 1.7, from 1.1 to 1.7, you can only have abstract methods here. Okay, but after Java 8 or from Java 1.8 or Java 8, we can also have default methods here. Let's see, in the interface. Okay, as long as you can also have static methods as well, but we are not considering the static methods for now. We will understand with a different example. But what is the default method? What is the use of it? Why they have suddenly bringing in a new functionality where everything is working fine with interfaces? There are hundreds of applications or lakhs of applications built in 1.7 doesn't face any problem. Then why they suddenly brought in default methods? That's what we are going to learn. So let's also create one more class. Let's say demo class A. Okay, and this demo class A implements the interface, demo interface, right? And let's also create one more class, that is demo class 2 or B, that implements demo interface. Okay, this is all good. Since this interface doesn't have any methods, abstract methods, you don't have to provide the implementation. But when I go ahead and add a method here, let's say void show, some method I have here. If you create a method, as soon as I create a method, it is telling two problems. You go and fix all these things. Okay, so now I have to go here, provide implementation, yes, and then I have to go here, provide implementation. If I have implemented in so many classes, let's say 500 classes, this interface I have used. Okay, then I have to go on each class and then I have to provide the implementation, even though I'm not going to do anything with this. Let's say this show method is, let's say I want to create one more, okay, one more method. This particular method is only applicable for demo class A, not for the demo class B. Okay, even then I have to go ahead and declare it here only. This is a previous problem. Okay, in 1.7 this is the problem. So I have a method that is only used here, only in the demo class A, and will not be overridden here. Okay, even then I can only put, let's say I am only class A method. This is a class A method. This will be only used in class A, not in the class B. Even then I have no other option. Okay, I have to go and implement it here. Same way, I'm not using it, but still I have to go and implement it just to satisfy the rules that's set by interface. That's the problem, right? It doesn't provide you the backward compatibility due to some reasons. If you want to add some abstract methods here, you have to provide implementation in all the subclasses. This is a problem. Okay, so they Java 8, they fixed this with the help of default methods. What these default methods will do, you just need to tell default at the beginning, and then you can provide your own implementation as well. Okay, whoever the methods who want to override this, they can override. Okay, if you don't want this, you don't have to really use it. Okay, it doesn't throw you an error. Okay, so default methods are something that you can provide your own default implementation. Okay, and then if it wants to be overridden, okay, it can be overridden as well. Overridden as well, but nobody is going to force you. All the subclasses will not be forced to provide the implementation for the default methods, but the abstract methods you have to provide the implementation. So that's the problem, right? So we will try to understand this in a very good example with the TestNG. Okay, let's go to the pom.xml and let's say the org.testng, it's 7.4 version I'm using, right? So let's create one more class. Maybe I'll create inside this listeners demo. Okay, so I'm going to teach about listeners, so I'll keep listeners demo. And this listeners demo, let's first go to the pom.xml and I'll just change the version here. Okay, 6.14.3. Okay, once I change the version, I'll just reload this. Okay, now the version is 6.14.3, little older version, but yeah, that I have to explain something here. So now I will close all other tabs. There is an interface in TestNG that is called as iTestListener. If you notice iTestListener, if you implement this iTestListener, it has a lot of abstract methods. If you go inside this, if you notice void this one, and then it takes in iTestResult. These are all abstract methods, right? It's an interface, it's an abstract method, right? So you have to provide the implementation for all of these. So if I hover my mouse over this, it will show implement methods, and you have to provide the implementation for all of them. There is no other way, right? Now, what this implementation you can give? So whenever a test is getting started, this will be called. So this will be similar to your before method. Okay, your before method will also be called before each test method is getting started, right? This is also doing that. Whenever a test method is getting success, okay, this is similar to after method, but only during success, only during pass of the test. This is also after method, but only during failure. This is after method during skip. Okay, when your test is getting skipped. Okay, again, these things are really not on our control. So like, let's say your test is failing with some appropriate percentage. Okay, maybe if your test is failing 80%, you are okay. You know, if it is passing 80%, you are okay to mark it as a pass. Then this method will be called. And this is on start and on finish. This is your before suite. This is something like your after suite. So whatever we have in the form of annotation, we also have it in the form of listeners. So every time you run a test, this will be called. Okay, there we have one only before method. Here also we have before method that is called as on test start. There we have after method as one method. Here, based upon whether the test is getting passed or failed or getting skipped, it is separated into three different methods. Okay, and then we also have before suite and after suite. Okay, so you can also use this here, right? Let's take a simple TestNG test interface, data provider test. We'll create one more test, data provider test. Okay, I'll copy this test. Okay, so I have this test. Okay, let's say I'm hard coding this now, not a problem. Okay, so now this is a test. Previously we used before method, after method, before suite and after suite. This time we are not going to use that. We are going to use the listeners. Okay, so let's also take that particular thing. So this is the one. So whatever we have written inside the before suite, we are going to use it in the we can also use it in the listeners. Okay, so we don't want to integrate directly with the external reports. Maybe we will just try to go here, listeners demo, and I'll put let's say result. So this result is having a lot of details like method reflection. It has a lot of details. Like I can tell get name. Okay, so I can tell is started. Okay, if it is pass, then it will tell result dot get name is passed. Okay, otherwise it will tell fail and all that. This is for skipped. So this is failed. This is skipped. Okay, this is for before suite, right? So yes out. I am before suite, something like this. Okay, this is after suite. Okay, now I need, so I have created this listener, but I haven't integrated this, right? I haven't integrated this with this. So in order to tell, hey, test, you have a listener who is listening to you, we need to go to the testng.xml. Let's say the test that I'm trying to run is now listeners test. So test not listeners test. Okay, so this is a test I'm trying to run, and I need to tell there is a listeners. Okay, and there is a listener. So now I need to tell which class is the listener class. Which is the class that is listening now? This is listeners demo, right? So I need to tell that listeners demo is present in test dot listeners demo. Now I can collapse this empty tag. So now what we are doing, hey, TestNG, try to run this particular test. While running the test, also make sure that listener is getting informed with whatever the test getting started, whatever the test getting failed, everything it needs to be aware of. Okay, let's try to run it and see what's happening. So now it is running the listeners test. But this time, if you notice, so the listeners test is started. So, okay, before the test is getting started, if you notice, I am a before suite. Okay, before everything, this guy is getting executed because this is a before suite, right? And then before the test method, listener test is started. Okay, so listener test is started. So this result is fetching you the test name, test case name. So if we go and check the test case name, this is listener's test, right? So listener's test is started. And also we also have uh, the after method, that is listener test is passed, because this is passed now, right? It doesn't fail. Maybe I will put some failure here. So dot assert equals, I am trying to compare 1 and 2, which obviously will fail. This time the listener test is failed will come. Okay, and then it's also executing I am an after suite. So yeah, instead of using these annotations, you can also use listeners in the from the TestNG. Okay, that's the advantage. So the advantage is you can keep away the code that are not relevant to your test cases separately. It does not clutter your code. If you notice this here, it has cluttered our code. Okay, it has cluttered all these things, or it is spoiling our readability. So that's the reason we may move this to the listeners. Okay, we'll understand how we can move the external reports code to listener later point of time. But just understand there is something called as listeners in TestNG, which will listen to each of your things. Okay. Now, if I try to run the test again, this time it will fail and this will be executed. Okay. On test failure. So now the test is getting failed. And if you notice listener's test is failed, and you're also getting the assertion error and all that. So yeah, so whenever something is getting failed, it will be automatically called. You don't have to do anything. Just that you just mention there is a listener here. He will listen to all your events. Okay, that's the only thing. And also, you can, based on this result, you can fetch a lot of things. You can fetch the get method dot get description. Okay, you can also get the description. Okay, so let's say I do the S out of this. Now if I go to the listeners test and I'll add some description here, description equal to check whether whatever, if you can fetch whatever you want. Okay, you can fetch all the things. So now you can go here, it'll print you the description. Okay, you can print the description and then tell use past whatever. Okay, you can tell like this, instead of just the test case name, you can also use the description and then print it. The reason why I have covered the default method in interfaces is because this is how everyone is using it. 6.14.3 in the version of 6.14.3, this is how it is. The interface is completely abstract methods. Okay, so this is fully of abstract methods and everything was working fine. But suddenly, see, we have this method that is not at all used, and some people might not even use this, and some people might not even need the before suite and after suite. They just want these three or four. Okay, and they want to give the backward compatibility as well. So what they have thought, they have from the latest versions in the TestNG, they have changed all the methods, abstract methods, into default methods. So if I try to put the latest method, that is 7.4.0, guys, in IntelliJ it can smartly identify what is the stuff. Okay, if you just press Control and space, it will list you all the versions. Okay, so I am choosing the latest one and then I'm reloading it. Now if I go here, your existing code will still work. Okay, let's say I remove this, it won't throw any error. Previously it throwed error because the test listener is what having abstract methods, but now it has a default implementation of doing nothing. It's a default implementation of doing nothing. Okay, but I want to provide some implementation only for the selected bunch of things. Okay, I don't want this, I don't want this. You don't have to really override them. Okay, let's keep it at, see, there is one more method they have added, but I don't need all these things. Okay, I only want few things and I will put it there. Okay, let's go to the listeners demo and then I'll put that there. I'll remove unknown things. Okay, I don't want this, I'll remove it. I remove it. Okay, but these things I want, I'll keep it. If, but for someone if doesn't need it, they can also remove this. Okay, so that's how TestNG have used default methods in their interfaces. So we have learned about what is default methods and why it is useful, and we also have covered how TestNG is using default methods in their code. Okay, so any doubts in this so far?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, from anyone else?
Even static methods also they implemented in 1.8 onwards.
Yeah, yeah, but we will see a good example where they are using the static methods, because I have to give proper examples, so just wait for some time. We will also learn why they have introduced static methods in interfaces. Okay,
Okay.
but just if someone is asking you in an interview what is an interface, you have to tell two different things. Okay, before 1.7 interfaces are before and in 1.7 Java versions, it used to only have abstract methods and final static constants. Okay, but after that these interfaces are again used to frame the skeleton, so that the implementing classes will provide follow the rules. But from 1.8 it also provided you with the options of default methods and static methods. The default methods is called as a defender method because it provides you the extra functionality to basically provide the backward compatibility. You don't really have to worry about the implementation part. Okay, if you want, you override it. If you don't want, you leave it, but it will not force any of the users to basically implement that. For example, they have added one this particular method here, on test failed with timeout. This method was not previously there. Okay, I am just noticing now only. So this they have added, but we are not even sure about it. Okay, so it doesn't mean, so we are not overriding it. We don't really have to know about it because we don't need it. If you want, you can use it. Okay, so that's the power of default methods. So you have to tell pre 1.7 and post 1.7. So there are two different cases of explaining interfaces, but yeah, you might have to explain it in a detail. Okay, good. And yeah, that's all about how we can integrate TestNG and the listeners. Okay, so very very simple. Go to the testng.xml file. Whatever the classes you are going to run, we will just mention the listeners. Listeners will take care of everything. Okay, it will be called, it is almost like your before method and after method, but it is placed in a different location. And it's called as a listener. Here we call it as an annotation. So that's the only difference. Some people will use both before method and listeners, that's also fine. So yeah, that's we will cover in framework creation. Now apart from this, I also want to cover one more topic. Let's say, um, so we have already learned about array, right? So we learned about int array. So int a equals to, let's say, new, or basically I can tell 5 comma 6 comma 7 comma 8 comma 9. We have learned about arrays. Then we also learned about array list, right? So let's say I have a list of string is equal to new array list. So what is the difference between these two? Can anyone explain? We have learned about two things. Okay, one is array and one is array list. What is the difference between these two things?
Amuthan,
Yeah,
Yeah, for array list, like we don't give any like size of it. We can add any number of
Okay,
elements to it. But for array, we need to give the size. We have to define the size before adding it. Okay,
exactly.
first, yeah, and second, mm,
What
yeah, in the
else?
array list we can add any type of object. But for the array, we need to have object array. Then only we can add different. Like array is homogeneous, and array list
Yes,
is like heterogeneous.
yes, but it's always recommended to use list also as a
List,
homogeneous. Okay,
yes.
and then we are defining the type what we are going to store inside this. So this particular thing indicates that we are going to store all the type of strings, like list. We are going to have list of strings stored inside this, and both of them are operating based on the index. Okay, so both of them are operating based on the index, which means you get an liberty to access an element from the collection using an index, right? So you can tell s out a of 2, a of 3, whatever, you can fetch the value. The same way, you can tell list dot get, and then you can mention the index, what is the second index I want to fetch the element, then you can also use it. So this also gives you the positional access or index based access. Okay, if you want, there are a lot of elements, you want to pick only one, you can also do that with the help of index. But there is a problem with this list is uh, the list and there is not a problem. Again, there is one more functionality that you need to understand. They are all maintain their insertion order. For example, if I say list dot add of something, and then list dot add something, okay, then okay, this maintains the insertion order. Okay, for example, if will be first, it will be second. Okay, so whatever you are adding first, it will be in the 0th index. Whatever you are adding next, it will be in the first index. It will maintain the insertion order as well. But there are certain collections. Okay, see, again, when I mean collections, they are just a way. Let's imagine you want to store a lot of things. Okay, you will have different containers, right? I have already shown that example. So the same way, there are other containers as well which can help you to scatter certain needs. For example, this also allows duplicates. For example, if you want to add duplicate like this, you can do that. You can have duplicate elements, but there can be cases where you don't want duplicates. Okay, in those cases, you can also go for something called a set, and then I'm going to store all the string types here. Set equal to new hash set. So this imported from import class java.util.set. So now what is the thing here is, if I just tell set.add, I'm trying to add, no, do this. Okay, I can do this, and then I just replace this with set. Okay, once I do this, okay, now if I try to print it, okay, let's remove all this code. I don't need this. And yes, out set. Okay, try to run it. So if you notice, we have added two things. Okay, let's also print the list. Yes, out list. So in the list, it supports duplicates. So you can add duplicate values. Okay, two values can be same, but in set, the two values cannot be same. So if you add the second value, it will go and replace the first value. Okay, again, the set, it doesn't not allow duplicate. Again, it does not allow index based access. Okay, in list we are using get method to get a particular thing. Right here, if I type set dot get, you cannot get based on the index because it doesn't have any index based things. Okay, it just maintains a lot of objects but not using index. Okay, so how will you fetch this? Okay, previously, when we want to print all the values in the list, what we did, we ran a for loop. Okay, we ran a for loop, and then we tell list dot size, right? We iterated till here, and then we printed list dot get get a 5, right? We did this. So what it will do, it will go and iterate 0th index, first index, second index, and print all the values, correct? This was working fine. But there is also other approach where you know there is something called as for each loop, okay, which means you can still put a for, okay, and then you can mention what you are storing here. Okay, I'm storing a string. Okay, let me put a temporary variable. I'll explain what I'm doing, guys, don't worry. Okay, and then so this is actually same as this. Here we are basically doing index based access here. Okay, we are fetching the index and all that, but here what we are doing, this is called as a for each or customized for loop. Okay, if your intention is to iterate from 0 till the end, okay, if your intention is to iterate from 0 till the end, then you don't have to really write or worry about the index or size of it and all that. What Java says, whatever you have, whatever the element, whatever the list you have, I will give you one by one. So we are storing this in a temporary variable of type string. So what happens, it will give you one by one. First time it will store the value of this into the temp. Second time it will store this value into the temp. Third time it will store this value into the temp. So you do whatever the operation you want to do with the temporary variable. You really don't have to worry about the indexes. So this is only helpful. This is only helpful if you want to iterate from 0 to end. Okay. But if you want to iterate till list dot size by 2 or list dot size minus 5, okay, you cannot do that. Okay, because this will give you the entire thing. Okay, one by one it will give. Okay, so this is called as for each loop or customized for loop. Any doubts in this for each loop? So this is just a variable name. You can name it as a, whatever you want. It's fine. Okay, what it will do is basically put whatever the contents in the list, it will iterate one by one and it will store it in this temporary variable. Okay, whatever the variable name you give. Any doubts?
So Amutan,
Yeah.
like for each, there won't be like any condition. Like in for we have second it like I is
No,
less
no,
than a list of such.
no condition, no increment. It
So
will
can we
automatically do the
say it is just used for reading purpose? We can say like
yes,
that.
yes.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
It is not a positional based access. It also makes your code a little easy, right? So here I plus plus. Okay. Anyway, it is going to do what, it is going to do all these things, implicitly. So you don't have to really spend efforts on what is finding the size, what is, doing all the thing. Okay. It is going to remove all the stuff. So since set doesn't offer the index based collection, so the only way you can iterate a set is using a for each loop. Okay, so if I want to print all the values from a set, all I have to do, maybe I'll add few more values, set dot add, and then I'll add some values, and then if you want to print it, I have to do for each. Again, this time you can put for each, and I can say string, this is temp. Okay, and I want to iterate this set. Okay, and every time I iterate, I want to print the temp. Okay, that's it. Yeah, so let's try to run it and see what's happening. So we are adding duplicates, but the set will not store the duplicates. It will remove the duplicates. So it will only print STFSF and this one. Okay, the duplicate is automatically removed. So whenever they ask you in an interview, if they give you an array list with the duplicates, and then they ask you to remove the duplicates, you can just convert into a set. How will you do that? That is also very easy, guys. So you have a duplicate of set here. They may ask you in an interview, okay, remove the duplicates from this. Remove the duplicates from this set. Okay, instead of you going and doing a lot of for loop, if condition, all that, when creating a hash set, you can just pass this list to the constructor. This is a constructor, right? So you're passing this to the constructor, which means this, whatever the values we have here, it will be converted to a list with these values. Okay. Now, if I try to do S out of set, all the duplicates will be removed. So if you notice, duplicates are removed. But the problem with this is it doesn't maintain the insertion order. So here it maintains the insertion order, but here it doesn't maintain the insertion order. Even though it is inserted first, it doesn't mean it will be displayed first. So set also does not maintain insertion order. Okay, good. So if you know about three collection, list, set, map, okay, you can basically work in Selenium. Okay, you can learn about other collections at the later point of time, but these things are really important to proceed. Good. Any other doubts in this so far? Okay, I assume there is no. So we will also move ahead and slightly cover map. Okay, and then we will, yeah, go ahead.
Actually, where will we use this set? Actually, there's no.
That we will cover now. Next we will cover. First we need to learn about what is that, and then we will see how it is being used. We will see that. Okay. Now we are going to see learn about map, and then we'll also see how the set is there, and then we'll also have certain cases in Selenium where we are using set. So we'll also learn about that. So before that, we are going to see about map. Okay, what is a map? Okay, in set and list and all, we have to store only one values. Here we are storing it based on the index. Here there is no storing mechanism in the set at all. So it will be stored in random places, and when you want it, you will be fetching it. But the map is having key value relation. Key value relation. Okay, it's like your imagine during our school days or college days, we all have our roll numbers for a name, right? Because we don't want to tell our name in the paper so that somebody will put a biased marks, right? So that's why we have roll numbers. This is an example of key and value pair. Roll number is your key, and actually we want to the value is your name, right? Let's say I want to create a map. Okay, I want to create a map. I have to, previously we have only one thing. Okay, so we just mentioned only one type in the less than and greater than arrow mark. But here we have key and value, two components. So two components will have their own type. Here roll number is of integer, right? Roll number will be integer, but the name will be of string type. So I just mentioning string type. I'll name this as a map. Okay, you can import this from java.util.map equal to new hash map. There is something called as hash map. I want to store this. Now this will be a key value pair. Okay, key and value. So now previously we used list.add, set.add. Now we can put the values. While you put, it is asking, hey, pass me the key and the value. Sorry guys. So it is asking you to put the value. So let's say roll number is 1, name is Samudra. That's it. Second value. So I want to add more values. Okay, roll number 2 is for basically Bala, right? And then again I put map.put. If you want to add third value, you can put 3, and then you can add, let's say, Sachin. Okay, whatever. So now we have 3 students with 3 roll numbers, and let's say tomorrow I want to distribute the papers and all that. What I will do, what the teacher will do, she will tell, hey, roll number 3, who is that? Come here, get your paper, right? So at the time, how we'll fetch it value? So we will tell out map dot get. Previously here list dot get we used index, right? So we used list.get and then we pass the index 1, 0 or whatever. But here we need to pass the key. So get, and then you pass the key. Hey, roll number 3, come and fetch your mark sheet. Okay, I'll come and fetch it. Okay, now if you print it, so if you notice, it is giving us Sachin, because if you try to call get method and pass the key value, this is not the index, guys, this is a key. Okay, now let's also have one more way. We can also have keys in different ways. Okay, you can have key a string, value is also string. Okay, map to, this is new hash map. Okay, sometimes, okay, maybe let's say this is let's say countries, uh, countries capital map. Okay, you have a map where you have key as your country and the value as your capital of the country. Let's say country's capital dot put. Okay, you have India, and then we have New Delhi as capital, right? And then you have country's capital dot, you put China. Okay, you have Beijing as the capital, right? So yeah, so you can also have keys as string. It's not like always your keys will be of integers. Okay, your key can also be string and value can also be string. So in those cases, you can mention key as string, value as string. Whatever is there in the first place, it's your key. This is your values. I want to, now I want to get the capital. So country's capital dot get. I want to get the capital of India. Then it will basically print me New Delhi, right? So it is printing me that. Let's say you are giving something that is not even present in the map. Let's say I'm giving USA, which is actually not present here. Then what happens? It will return you null. So if you tell something that is not present, it will give you null. Again, let's say in the roll number, I'll put, so what will be the output of this 38th line? Can anyone guess?
Tendulkar.
Why not Sachin?
Maybe overriding.
Yeah, so it's not overriding. Actually, it will replace the existing value with the new value. So if you can't have two duplicate keys is not allowed. Okay, so whenever you are trying to give the same key with a different value, it will add the new value. This one will go away. Okay, so let's try to print it. If you notice, we get Tendulkar now, not Sachin. This is because when the keys are same, it will go and replace the existing value with the new value that you entered. Okay, this is all fine, but I want to print all these values. Okay, I don't want to fetch one by one. I need to iterate everything and then I want to print it. I need to run a for loop and then I want to print it, whatever. In those cases, what you can do, you cannot, again guys, it's not that your keys will be in the aligned order 1 2 3 4 5. No, it won't be like that. Sometimes your keys will be India, China, and different names, right? So you cannot predict which one will be there. So what you're going to do, there is something called as map dot key set. Okay, if you notice, there is something called as key set. This method will return you a set. Okay, whatever the keys that you have, whatever the keys this map is having, this method knows it. Okay, it will give you, so this will give you all the integers that this map is having, that is 1 2 3. If I also mention country's capital dot key set, it is going to return me string. So is basically the country names. Okay, okay, so if somebody is telling key set, which means it will give this keys, whatever the keys present, as a form of set. Set means there is no duplicates. That's why there is no duplicates. There will be no duplicates in the keys. Okay, the keys here uses the set implementation. Again, don't get too confused. Map doesn't allow 2 duplicate keys. When you add another key with the duplicate name, it will replace the Sachin with the Tendulkar. Again, I want to iterate. So what it will do, we are telling map.keyset will give you integers. Now you have a set, you know how to iterate. If you have a set, okay, if you have a set, this is of integer type, right? So I need to mention integer a, and then integers. This is integers. I want to iterate this. Maybe this name is used often, so I will put x and then s out x. Okay. Now this will print me 1, 2, 3 because that's the key. But I also want the value. So if you want the value, you can just put map.get x. Okay. Because map.get of key will give you the value. Okay. Let's see what's happening. Okay, if you notice, it is printing the key, and here it is printing the value of that particular key. So map.get of the key will give you the key value of that key. Okay, so 2 Bala, 3 Tendulkar, and everything was working fine. If you want to iterate this, again, it's very simple. So run a for each loop, and then you mention string, temp, whatever, and then country names. Okay, and then you can print yes out. Temp is the key. Maybe you can also append it here itself. What is the value? The value is basically countries capital dot get of temp, right? So yeah, now this is really easy. So you have a set. You can now iterate through the set using for each loop, and you can print the values. Okay, guys. Again, if you think this is fast, you can go through over the recordings. We have a lot of time. Tomorrow we're gonna take break. So that's the reason I'm covering this map so that you can go and prepare well. Any doubts in the sofa? So now if I try to run this as well, it will work. So it will print key and value separated by a semicolon. Okay. Notice key and value separated by a semicolon, and this won't be in order because map also doesn't maintain the insertion order. The hash map, okay, doesn't maintain insertion orders. Good. Any doubts? Any doubts in this so far?
Today class wise no questions, but I need to ask something.
Okay.
Did you have